Welcome back. Let's talk about the very first week of witness testimony in the trial, the first 5 days or so.
Go to Mr. Shakur.
Yes, I did.
And
then
we'll start off with the bike
What's your
cop.
responsibility as it relates to Mr. Shakur as the EMT's working on?
I was trying to talk to him to find out what had happened. Excuse me. Gather information to see who had fired at them.
And so what he winds up testifying about is he testifies that he's riding a bicycle. They come across a car, a black BMW, and this car has no license plates on it. And so they stop the car and they're like, "What's up with the no plates, bro?" And they're like, "We were filming a video, a music video, and so we had to take the license plates off." And he's like, "All right, you need to put the plates back on. I'm just giving you a warning this time." And so they leave. And so he's still riding along on his bicycle. And finally he gets a call. There's shots fired. He makes it over to the scene, pedaling over to the scene. He gets there. He sees that same black BMW, and there's been a shooting. He sees Tupac in a very horrible state. He sees Suge Knight standing outside of the car. He's been grazed on the head. He's got some glass cuts. And he jumps in the ambulance with Tupac, and he's riding with Tupac to the hospital. And Tupac is still speaking at this time. And he's like, "Hey, man, who shot you?" And Tupac's like, "No, we'll take care of it." And that's all you could get out of him. "We'll take care of it" is probably the last words Tupac ever said.
Yes, I rode to the hospital in the ambulance with him.
During that time period, between the time you get to Mr. Shakur and the time period he gets taken into the hospital, are you able to have any sort of communication with Mr. Shakur?
He was still talking, and I was trying to convince him to tell me the name of whoever his assailants were.
And did he ever respond?
Yes, he responded, no, we'll take care of it.
It was a gang war. People were getting hurt.
Okay.
People was being sought. People were looking for certain individuals from his neighborhood.
Okay.
As well they did mine.
Okay.
But Orlando, him, and certain other people were being sought because people wanted to kill them.
Sure. Were they the only ones that they wanted to kill?
Am I the only one up in here? No, they weren't the only one. Okay. It's his neighborhood in particular.
That's right.
But they were the main subjects of a gang war. They was in the middle, such
Sure.
as me.
You know who that was there?
I know everybody that was there.
Okay. Like who?
Talk to your lawyer, man. This dude is tripping. I'm not going to explain that. I can't answer that. You're not going to talk to me and tell me as a grown man what I have to do up here. I'm not going to send him to prison. You are.
So the accusation now is because of the fact that we're trying to ask you questions, you're blaming it on me.
You asking me questions. If I just answer your questions, we gonna have a problem in here, a misunderstanding, and you're asking me something that wouldn't be good for him.
Right. And then once again, I just want to look. We're just trying to figure out who shot Tupac. You're telling us that you weren't there to see him. That's all I want to know. At the end of the day, that's it. Right?
Was I in the entourage when Tupac got shot? No.
Okay. I just want to clarify what the witnesses said. You're telling us that you had guns that night.
Yeah.
I just want to know. But you had guns that night, right?
Yes, we did.
All right, thank you.
Okay, so what's going on here? First of all, this is some analysis that you're not going to get just from watching it. And so that's really what this video is about. It's about the analysis you might get from a lawyer perspective. You can watch the whole thing on Court TV. You can watch the whole thing. There's a channel out of Chicago that's got it going on YouTube. There's a local channel in Las Vegas that has it on YouTube. You can watch the entire trial. But if you don't have time for that, drop in here. We'll give you the highlights and we'll provide a little bit of analysis. Not legal advice, but analysis. You notice on the stand with this witness, he does not want to testify. You can tell he does not want to testify. But he was called to testify by and through a subpoena. When you get a subpoena to go testify in court, you're getting a court order to show up to court to testify under oath. If you disobey a subpoena, then you can be held in contempt. That's the power that a court has to enforce its orders, to make people comply with the court order. The court has the power of contempt and can put you in jail if you do not respond the way a court has ordered you to respond. You can really tell that the witness doesn't want to testify at all. He even says as much. He says, "What you're going through, brother, is what you're going through. I didn't want to be a part of it." Now we're going to go on to Reggie Wright Jr.'s testimony. Say that 10 times in a row really fast. Reggie Wright Jr. It's harder than you think. Anyway, I'm not sure in recent memory I've ever seen a witness that seemed so giddy, so happy, like a teenager. Oh, to be in court. He seems super happy to be in court. When he takes the stand, well, he doesn't really take the stand because he's in a wheelchair. So when he rolls up next to the stand, he answers lots of questions, but each time there's almost a grin behind his answers.
It's fair at this particular point. At some point, you had actually instructed Keefe that, hey, he can actually make money doing the YouTube stuff. Remember that?
It didn't go quite like that, but I did pass his number to a few YouTube channels after he and I had this discussion about doing something on my channel, but I refused to pay him because I'm not giving someone I believe is Tupac Killer money.
Sure. So one of the things that had happened that you had shared with us is that Friday you meet with police and you learn and you're instructed that your people are not to be carrying firearms.
Inside the nightclub.
Right, inside of the nightclub.
That's correct.
All the way up until the time that they get to that door, they're not supposed to be carrying firearms.
Inside the club.
And you have at that particular point.
Okay, see, here's what the defendant's attorney is trying to establish. He had stated as much, or at least gave indications or implications that maybe Reggie Wright Jr. is behind the murder. And one of those indications he gave is, why would Reggie Wright Jr. order no one to carry firearms that night? But Reggie Wright Jr. is not saying that on the stand. It might be hurting the defendant's theory of the case that Reggie Wright Jr. might have been involved, because Reggie Wright Jr. says, well, we didn't tell him not to carry guns. We just told him to not carry guns in the nightclub. And the nightclub is 662. This is where Tupac and Suge Knight were on their way to when the shooting happened. They never made it there. But he's saying, we just told him not to carry guns inside of the nightclub. And so that kind of goes against some of the theory the defense was trying to throw out there.
Do you have at that particular point any ownership interest at all in Death Row Records?
None.
So you are a separate entity. You are just the security company hired to provide security for Death Row Records.
My company, right where it was making money, but I also received a salary from Death Row. And the ones that you seen kicking on Mr. Anderson, those were security as well.
That was whose security?
Death Row and style.
But once again, let me make sure I'm clear. You, at this particular point, only have one security guard with all these other people from, from Death Row Records who are not security guards. They're all gangsters, mob Pyru.
Yeah, I trust more than I trust my security. Yes.
So more than you would trust cops and off-duty cops and retired cops, you trust those mob Pyru guys?
I do personally.
Okay.
Reggie Wright says he trusts mob Pyru gangsters more than he trusts the police. And one of those reasons is because he might have been able to exert more control over mob Pyru persons than he would be able to exert over police. Because let's go back. Reggie Wright Sr. was in charge of the gang unit for Compton PD. He was a lieutenant. Reggie Wright Jr. for about 5 years worked for Compton PD, then went over to Death Row Records. And then he's got Suge Knight Death Row Records ethos, if you will. And so he believes that he can control mob Pyru gangsters more than he would be able to control police officers, is what we gather from this. And now we've got an FBI agent testifying. And let me tell you why a lot of these witnesses are testifying. So far, through 5 days of trial, there have been 17 witnesses called by the prosecution. And some of those witnesses' testimony is boring. Boring. Some of the witnesses are only testified to check some boxes. of things that all of us already know. All of us already know that Tupac was shot on September 7th, 1996. But even though that it's common knowledge for us, you still have to establish it at trial. And so that's why they're calling people in for the autopsy to state the condition he was in, that he was shot, and then to state when he died. All of that has to be established, even though we already know it. You also have other testimony that's pretty boring. An example would be the person from the MGM. The person from the MGM came in to testify only to the extent that they needed to authenticate a video. And what authentication means is they have to show that this video is what it purports to be before they can ask for that video to be admitted into evidence. When you want to admit a document, a video, an audio recording, those sorts of things, you have to get someone to authenticate that, yes, I'm familiar with this certain piece of evidence. I understand how it was maintained. I know it hasn't been altered since it was first recorded. And I have personal knowledge of how it was stored with the company. And so the only reason why they brought in the MGM person is to authenticate the video of Orlando getting beat down at the MGM. We call him Lando in a lot of our videos. He's also called Baby Lane sometimes. But that's the only reason why they brought that guy in, is for authentication. You probably don't want to sit through the testimony of people that are just coming in to authenticate evidence. And so what we're trying to show you is what the evidence means and why it was brought in, so you don't have to bore yourself with an hour and a half worth of testimony on someone just authenticating a recording or a video or audio recording or a document or something like that. So we get to Wade Lee, who's an FBI agent, and what he's brought in mainly for is to authenticate a recording from when Keefe was talking. Keefe, you talk too much.
And then what's this book they say you wrote?
Yeah, I did.
When Keefe was talking, it was being recorded, and he's coming in to say, oh yeah, this is what was said. Yeah, that recording's accurate. Yeah, this recording is authentic. Two of America's most wanted. And so once it's authenticated, then the prosecution can move to say, proposed exhibit, whatever, let's call it D or D5 or whatever. We would like to offer this into evidence as exhibit D5.
There wasn't any sort of immunity for any crimes that he disclosed. You just couldn't use the statements that he made to you to prosecute him for those particular crimes.
That's correct.
And that was an agreement between the United States Attorney's Office and Mr. Davis.
That's correct.
Okay, what they're going through now are some basic contract principles. One of the contract principles they're going through is a concept called privity of contract. Now, you can't be bound by a contract unless you're a party to the contract. And so what they're getting from the FBI agent is when they offered some sort of immunity for the proffer of Keefe D, they're only offering it in a limited way. Us, the FBI, the Federal Task Force or whatever, we're not going to come after you if you tell us all this stuff. But who was not a party to that agreement? What they're getting at, the party that wasn't there, is Nevada authorities. That he's being prosecuted in a Nevada state court. The Nevada state authorities were not at that meeting where it was agreed that he wouldn't be prosecuted by the feds. So there is no agreement when it comes to Nevada. Keefe never made an agreement with Nevada. That's what they're establishing through this FBI agent.
At no point in here did the state of Nevada, the Clark County District Attorney's Office, or any agency other than the U.S. Attorney's Office make an agreement with Mr. Davis about these 302s.
That's correct.
Even though other government agencies were potentially involved in the task force, they weren't involved with regards to this agreement, the proffer. They weren't part of the proffer, is what you're saying, even though it's part of the task force.
Correct.
All right, now we're going to move on to Darren Dupree.
And then
What was it?
we did the other.
He said we did the other one.
Okay, we did the other one. Here's what he's talking about right here. So the Federal Task Force, and I'm paraphrasing here. I'm shortening it up just so you get the gist of it without having to watch hours of video. He's brought in and they say, hey, we're investigating the murder of Biggie Smalls, Notorious, Big, Christopher Wallace. We're not going to prosecute you if you tell us everything you know about Biggie and everything you know about the potential corruption of the LAPD. And then Keefe says something like, oh, I don't know anything about any of that stuff. I don't know anything about any of that stuff. But let me tell you about the other one we did. The other one we did, he's referring to Tupac. They didn't even bring him in for Tupac. Why are you talking about Tupac, Keefe? Keefe, you talk so much.
It's so dumb.
Keefe is offering, this is what we did to Tupac, and the proffer was limited in, tell us about Biggie and tell us about the LAPD. I don't know anything about that, but let me tell you about killing Tupac.
Me personally, the only other one was Tupac. But we had nothing, we didn't think he was, we were talking about Christopher Wallace. We didn't ask him any questions about Tupac. He offered that on his own.
Was that still based upon the agreement between Wayne Higgins and the U.S. Attorney that it would be a proffer session?
Yes.
At that point, before having this conversation with Mr. Davis, has anybody notified Las Vegas that Mr. Davis is going to be talking about the Tupac Shakur murder?
Unfortunately, no.
The prosecution is even going a step further, saying that when this proffer was made, not only was Las Vegas or Nevada not a part of that proffer agreement, they didn't even know about it.
Mr. Davis had a narcotics friend in New York by the name of Equan Williams, Zip. He said he could, this is a lot deeper than that. Sean Puffy Combs was supposed to have given money to Zip Martin to give to Mr. Davis for payment of the Tupac murder. Fast forward, we go to Mr. Davis. He says he can rekindle that relationship with Mr. Zip Martin and get him to talk about the money that was given from Sean Puffy Combs to Mr. Martin that never got to Mr. Davis.
Let's think about this for a second. So, Keefe, who volunteers information he should have never volunteered, if he's found guilty, it will be because of his own statements. So really think about this. So Keefe, he's with the Southside Compton Crips. Southside Compton Crips was routinely and regularly hired by Bad Boy Records, Puffy and Company, to be security for Puffy when he came out west and for Puffy's artists when they came out west. Security for Death Row Records, that was Mob Piru, the Bloods. So you got Crips and Bloods here. Keefe is on the Crips side working for Diddy. So in this proffer, when he's talking and being recorded, he's talking about how he's going to implicate and can help them. So he wants to go help the police go take down Zip, who works for Diddy. And Zip's the one that introduced Keefe to Diddy to become security. So now, not only has Keefe made enemies with the Bloods, but now he's made enemies with the Crips. And when that recording is released in 2011 by Kading, who writes a book about it, does a documentary TV series, when all of that becomes known to everybody, Keefe no longer has any friends. No Blood friends, no Crips friends.
Don't look at Cut like no real Crip.
Red and blue both hate him. Colors. Now we got Devonta Lee.
I guess we basically seen each other simultaneously, you know what I mean? And we noticed people, they noticed us. They kept, coming our way, we kept coming that way. And a couple of words was exchanged once it got close enough, you know what I mean? And that's when the fight broke out.
So a fight broke out?
Yeah.
And by that, we're talking about people punching each other and tackling each other. Type of thing. On the other side, were you aware of somebody by the name of Trayvon Lane there?
Yeah, I was aware of Trayvon, yeah.
And in particular, there's talk about a death row chain or medallion hanging from Trayvon Lane's neck. Did you see that?
Yeah, I seen did I see the chain?
Yeah.
Yeah, I seen the chain.
Okay. During the fight, did anything happen to that chain?
Yeah, during the brawl, it came off his neck.
It came off his neck.
Let me ask you something about...
That's what we attorneys call passive language.
About the significance of a chain or something like that. Is there any special significance to taking somebody's chain?
Yeah, I would think so. Yeah. Well, yeah, of course.
Can you explain that?
I mean, that was their logo, and so it's like you taking that from them is, like you got something, to at least harp about or to say, hey, look, I took this. That's all it would be.
Would it be considered disrespectful to rip somebody's chain off?
Yes.
What he's talking about is this death row pendant chain taken off during the Lakewood Mall fight. It's kind of like taking someone's colors. He's saying that the chain was ripped off. That's disrespectful. It's ripped off because it says death row. So it's an affront to the colors, to the gang itself, to death row itself, and the gang that provides security for death row. Why is this witness brought into trial? He's brought into trial to establish facts about this Lakewood Mall incident, because if you watch the prosecutor's opening statement, you know that the prosecutor wanted to give the jury a motive. Juries want a motive. Why did that person kill that person? In order for them to believe that someone is guilty of murder, they want to know what the motive of that murder is. And that's what the Lakewood Mall incident is. The Lakewood Mall, as it's set up by the prosecution, is the place where the feud began to erupt. Someone got highly disrespected. This wasn't going to go without some sort of retaliation. And then the retaliation that happened with respect to the Lakewood Mall incident was at the MGM. And that's when Baby Lane, Orlando, gets beat down. And that's retaliation for ripping off that chain. He was all by himself. He gets beat down. Then they're saying that the shooting of Tupac was retaliation for beating down Lando. You got this eye for an eye thing going on. You did this to me, so I'm going to do something to you. You did this to me, so I'm going to do something to you. And I'll tell you what, Gandhi once said, an eye for an eye eventually makes the whole world blind.
Yeah, 1 sec. For the record, the jury. Maybe it's accident? Okay, yes. What's up?
They keep giving out my address. They broke in my house, vandalized my house, vandalized my wife's car. You know what I'm saying? Because they keep giving out our address. Now they gave out my sister's address. This stuff is wrong.
I've heard it's going on both ways. That there's concerns both ways.
They're wrong.
I've admonished them to talk to their witnesses and anyone they can communicate about these issues. Okay. So your attorney let me know what's going on.
I get beat up by the cops. The guy attacked me in here, sent me to prison. This is wrong, and it's supposed to do this job.
For the record, you're pointing Mr. Johnny.
Yeah, for the record, I think he's indicating he's upset I'm prosecuting him for murder.
No, I'm not upset because you prosecute. You're endangering my family's life.
Okay. State, again, like we talked about at the bench, you're going to stay in communication with your witnesses about not doing any of that. Goes both ways. Mr. Stamps, you'll talk to your client about not communicating with witnesses as well.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, perfect. We'll be in recess. Thanks, everybody.
A lot of news articles you'll see out there, everyone's covering it now. They weren't covering it when we first released our first video in preparation for the trial. If you haven't seen that, go back and watch it. He's having an outburst, but at least he's doing it outside of the presence of the jury. He doesn't do this when the jury's in the room. He's having this outburst while the judge is the only one listening to it and the people in the peanut gallery. But he's saying that because of this trial and because his address being given out by the prosecution, because it's listed on a witness list or something like that, that everyone knows where he lives, and now they're terrorizing his wife, terrorizing his home, and he fears for the safety of his family. If this is happening to his family, what's going to happen to Keefe if he goes to prison? The Bloods aren't his friends anymore. The Crips aren't his friends anymore. Who's he going to hang with for protection? So the judge is ultimately the one going to be sentencing Keefe if he's found guilty. And so it's not a good idea for Keefe to have these outbursts. I mean, if you really want to get into the subconscious and help your case, You should never advocate for yourself in court. Let the lawyer do that. Let the lawyer be the jerk. Let the lawyer be the a-hole. Let the lawyer say, no, this is not what happened. This is what happened. But you don't do that. You can't wear the advocate hat and the victim hat at the same time. He's not looking like a victim in front of this judge while he's advocating. And that can be problematic for him because it'll be the judge ultimately who hands down the sentence if the jury finds him guilty.
In general, we heard that he said that this was just for show, that he was getting paid, this was Hollywood, this was all just, show business.
The term scripted came up as well. Was your show scripted at all?
No, and I pride myself in making sure that my work meets the strictest journalistic standards. I did not coach him in any way. We had meetings where I generally, very brief meetings when he was in the office, where I generally told him sort of where I was going with my questioning, but there was no coaching, no coercion, nothing of the sort. It was nothing was predetermined. I never provided questions ahead of time, either.
Fair to say, of course, you're in the business of drawing people to your work, right? You want people to purchase your work, view your work. Is that right?
Sure. Yeah.
Okay. Now, in terms
I'm
of...
not sorry, can I amend that? Sure. I'm not in the business of drawing people to my work. I'm in the business of creating compelling television or television programming or films.
Okay, so your...
It's a different standard.
Can you explain to me what the difference in standards are?
I don't do... okay, so the best distinction I can draw is I don't necessarily do reality television, where it's just, it's somewhat manufactured, it's bombastic, it's, anything goes. I make documentaries which are traditionally based in journalism.
So what he's trying to establish here, one of the defense's theories that they want the jury to kind of absorb is that everything that Keefe D had said to Vlad TV, everything he said in his book, everything he said, none of that was true. He was just clout chasing. He was looking for clout. He wanted clout so badly that he was just making up stories. And so this person being called to the stand is saying, I'm a journalist. We don't make up stories. We're not in the business of reality TV. We didn't tell him what to say. He just said it.
I'm out there trying to get to the truth of something. And that truth, I believe, is compelling enough to draw an audience.
He says he's out there to get the truth of something. That harkens back to the defendant's opening statement, where the theme of the opening statement was fact or fiction.
Fact or fiction?
Now let's talk about Michael
Dorsey. In
Dorsey.
this case, it seemed like they had solved this murder, and yet the world was carrying on like it was still unsolved and like we still didn't know what happened. And it was like, it sounds like we do know what happened. And so that was my goal, was to put that out there.
Did you have any concerns about accusing anybody of murder?
Absolutely. I had concerns for my own safety, accusing a gang member from a violent street gang of committing a murder, and then also just my own financial concerns, since Puffy was going to be implicated in it as well. Taking on someone who was at the time heading towards becoming a billionaire, and who at that time did not have the public backlash that he's faced the last few years. He still had a pretty good, clean image at the time. So I was concerned about both.
One of the things he's really highlighting here is that people were afraid of this gang and afraid to talk about the gang. And that even goes further than just the people in Compton. It goes much further.
When you see something that causes you to want to get involved with Mario Diaz?
Yes. I can't remember the exact date, but it was probably early 2017 would be my guess. Earlier in 2017. I was actually in Tulsa, Oklahoma for a film screening of one of my films, and I was out at dinner, and I think someone sent me a link to this YouTube video, and it was Keefe D in a studio. It's a short video. It's just him saying he's going public. He wants the world to know he was there for Tupac's murder. He says he has cancer. He wants the truth to come out.
He wants the truth to come out. Truth or fiction?
couldn't believe it. I immediately realized I was at a restaurant. I went outside and started calling people, and I talked to, I think, Greg Kading and some others, and we just thought, Keefe has to know he can't go public with this information because it can be used against him. But it sounded like he was going to go and talk, publicly about this murder and repeat possibly what he had said in his proffer in 2008. So we went from there, and then that's when I decided, I wanted to get involved with it.
And ultimately, are you retained as a subject matter expert for the production done that's now known as Death Row Chronicles by E1 Entertainment?
Yes, I was a consultant, technical consultant, and I was an on-camera expert as well. So they interviewed me.
Keefe D gets on YouTube and says, hey, I have cancer now. And so now that I have cancer, I want the truth to come out. He's the last one, when he says this, that's still live. He's trying to get attention, according to the defense. It's fiction. He's selling it to everyone else as truth. And they want to jump on this story because everyone still wants to know who killed Tupac. So nothing I said here constitutes legal advice. It's for entertainment purposes only. Drop your comments. Do you think Keefe did it? Do you think Keefe will be convicted? And I say this, if Keefe is convicted, it'll be his own words that wind up convicting him. You might have heard the Miranda rights before. Anything you say can and will be used against you in a court of law. That's how it starts. Keefe didn't get the memo on that. So there's still plenty of trial left. The prosecution probably has another 3 more weeks of trial. They've actually called less than half of the witnesses they've named, but that doesn't mean they have to call those witnesses. For example, they might not want to call Suge Knight. Suge Knight is on the prosecution's witness list, but Suge Knight said from prison, and it's out there now, that anyone that calls me to testify, I'm going to hurt their case. What he's implying is if the prosecution calls me, I'm going to hurt the prosecution's case. If the defense calls me, I'm going to hurt the defense's case. So he's threatening that I'm going to hurt your case if you call me to trial. So he may or may not testify. We'll just have to see. But stick around. You're going to want to follow this channel if you don't want to watch every single minute of the trial, because we'll just break down the important parts as we go along and update you with those important parts. So like, subscribe.
You shall not pass!